Hello, hello. If it's possible for people to please take a seat. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me? We'd like to get started. If we can please lower the chatter so that we can go ahead and get this started. Please take a seat. There's a lot of open seats. I see some people standing. Good evening, everybody. Sorry that we're still here. Sorry that we're here again, but we want to make sure to inform you on what's going on. I know that I stated last time that this is taking longer than I wanted to, and it's continuing to take way longer than I wanted to. And I can only imagine what you guys are feeling. So we are working very hard, and there has been a change, and I just want to talk to you about this change just for a little tiny bit, and then I want to pass it on to the folks. As you can see, I am no longer at the table. I couldn't be any happier right now. The change is that the city of Clearlake and the sheriff's office, and I'll be more specific, the Lake County Operation of Emergency Services has taken over the organization for recovery. There is a very different strategic way that they go about dealing with emergencies. As we all know, they've dealt with many of these emergencies throughout their lifetimes in the office, and they are changing the tenure and the speed at which things are happening on the ground and in your homes and in that community that has been impacted. And so I feel very good about where we are. And I'm sorry that we're still not done and that we're still working on the solution. But with this change, I feel better than ever. And so I'm going to pass it on. I want to thank you all for being here. I know I'm still getting a lot of phone calls and a lot of text messages from you guys. Don't stop. I'm here to help you navigate through the process, and I'm working with everybody here that's on the table as well to make sure we can get you answers or anything else that you guys are texting me or calling me about. You guys have my number, share my number. It's as public as it gets. And so I'm going to pass it on, I'm going to pass it on to the undersheriff, who is currently the acting sheriff. He doesn't want me to say that. Corey Polich, here you are.
Thank you, Bruno. As Bruno said, I feel for all of you that are here and been going through this, and we're going to do our best to get things going. As Bruno said, undersheriff, sort of acting sheriff. The sheriff is not able to be here tonight, so I guess I'm acting sheriff, and deputy director of OES. So on Monday, I was assigned as the incident commander from the county side of things, and we're in unified command with the city. What that means is we're working together. And Alan is the incident commander for the city. On Monday, we established our incident management team. This is most of them that are up here tonight, and started making some plans for how we wanted to attack this. Our role is recovery. That's what we're trying to do, is get everyone back to their house with water. And so they brought us in. We help with coordination, planning, and resources. And that's what we mainly do all day, is try to get all that stuff that people need out there doing the work. We have printed out some maps. I hope all of you had a chance to grab one of the maps outside. We'll be referring to that tonight. So going over what our plan and goals are. So this map, if you're looking at it, on Monday, we decided we needed to have some data. So we sent out our assessment teams. I'm sure that most of you might have had interactions with them, so we could get some data. So we could figure out what was going on out there, what hasn't happened, what had happened. And then we created this map with zones. Probably all of you have done that or been in a zone at some point. You're in a zone because we have zone haven and all those type of things. So this helps us manage our resources and direct them to where they need to go. Also, we created so if we need to communicate with all of you, with something changes in a certain area, we can identify that zone so you'll get the information you need. After that assessment and looking at this map, zone A1. So that's the zone that had the direct interaction with the spill. And those who live in the area know that. So we determined based on that information that we were going to try to get tanks to anyone who needed them in that zone. And that has been occurring. Today we identified 13 houses in zone A1 that needed tanks. 5 were installed today. 8 should be installed tomorrow. That's the expectation. So everyone in zone A1 that needed a tank will have a tank. Regarding the other zones that didn't have the direct interaction with the spill, we also started today, requested additional water operators, the folks to go out there and take the test samples. So those folks, we developed a plan. Our goal was to test every house in a zone per day, trying to get more tests, more results, so we can start getting some data to make decisions. Our teams went out today. I think there was about 4 of them. They were able to test a majority of the houses in the whole, in every zone, with the exception of a couple. And those are going to happen tomorrow. So those tests go out tonight. Those samples go out tonight. They're tested. The results takes about 24 hours, so they won't get back to us until tomorrow night, and really can't be looked at until about Friday morning to know what it's saying. So that's kind of what we've been doing and the plan for now. We do have other tanks. I know there's people out there that are having these tests and want to know what we're going to do with the additional tanks. That's all going to be data driven. So we're going to be looking at the data and try and figure out where those tanks need to go next. That's kind of the best way we can do that. I'm going to turn over to Alan so he can provide you with a little different information or more expansive information regarding our plans.
Good evening. Also say a couple of things before we get into those details. You know, I certainly don't want to ask all of you for patience at this point, you know, day 17. But I believe the time we spent over the last day and a half or so establishing a more formal command structure has already resulted in a more effective response. And I do want to give a huge thank you to Sheriff Bingham and Under Sheriff Pollich for supporting the recovery process. We wouldn't be able to do what we're doing without the team that they have in place, and very much appreciate it. So as the Undersheriff mentioned, our goal for this incident command team is very simple. We want all of you safely in your house as soon as possible. He also mentioned the damage assessment teams. You know, I want to thank you for your cooperation on that. Those were all city staff that we sent out. You know, I felt like we got really a good response. People appreciated them coming out. So we covered somewhere between 60 and 70% of the parcels yesterday. Other folks were not home. All of you should have been contacted today if we didn't visit you yesterday. So if for some reason you did slip through the cracks, there's very few people we don't have contact information for in the area. But if you did not get a response from us, please talk to me or someone after this so that we can make sure we get contact information from you. So the testing analysis, as Undersheriff mentioned, we've done a number of things to streamline and shorten the process itself so that we can get the test results more quickly in order to use them in our decision-making process and analysis. And so we are seeing a more rapid turnaround. That really came into effect this morning. And so you're going to see that moving forward is we're going to have better, quicker information to make decisions on. The plan that was implemented today is going to continue for a period of time. We expect to test every well that we can get access to every day and continue that probably at least through next week. And this is going to give us information that we can then hopefully starting tomorrow start reducing the scope of this incident. Public Health at the beginning issued a do not use order. Based on the ongoing analysis of testing results so far, we're expecting that probably as soon as tomorrow to move to a do not use advisory advice. And so expect more information to come out on that. And this advice will result in parcel specific approval to use your well after 2 consecutive negative tests. So if you get a negative result from total coliform and E. coli, tests have to be 24 hours apart. But once those 2 tests happen, you will receive notification from someone on the team and a packet from environmental health with your test results showing that and advice on how to treat your well moving forward. I think I kind of already mentioned this. We do expect the scope of the incident to be reduced on a parcel by parcel basis, hopefully on a daily basis as we move forward with updated test results. And we are hopeful that we'll be able to do some of that tomorrow. And looking here at the map again, as the scope of the incident is reduced, it should fairly rapidly get closer to zone A1. There are, as some of you I'm sure are aware, some hot spots that are not in zone A1, but close to A1. We'll be continuing to test those. There's probably going to be additional measures we're going to have to put into place specific for those parcels. And that's where additional tank supply that we have available and ready to go will come into play. And there may be other measures as well. But again, 2 clean tests, and then you will be free to use your well. Of course, you're free to use your well right now, but the public health advice is not to use it until you have 2 clean tests. So we do intend, even after there's 2 clean tests and you are released, that we will do some cadence of well testing after that. I think it was mentioned at the last town hall that there's a little bit of uncertainty on what may happen related to if there's a more significant rain event and how that impacts the aquifer. So we will continue to do some testing to keep an eye on that and see if anything changes. And I'll get into what we're doing around that a little bit. I guess, well, I kind of already mentioned tank priority, A1. That was the immediate priority. As of tomorrow, all of those folks in A1 will have tanks. And then we'll be moving into kind of spreading out and what's appropriate to get tanks from there based on hotspots in the test results. We had initially hoped to have a hydrologist that we're working with here tonight to give some information about the aquifer. Mr. Weatherby in the back has tried to share some information the last couple of times. And, you know, he's one of the smartest guys I know, but bringing a hydrologist in will be helpful for us. And so we are working with them. They need a little bit more test data before they can give us a real clear indication of what's happening in the aquifer. And we're going to need to do some more things to help determine groundwater depth and so forth. So environmental health, maybe working with some of you to take groundwater depth measurements at your wells, and we'll provide that data to the hydrologist. And at some point here soon, there will be a report or some feedback that we will share with the community. We aren't at this point committing necessarily to another town hall. We'll determine at some point if that is available, but we will share those results with you because early indications is it's going to be very meaningful and insightful for all of you. We have a more structured public information team now. You haven't seen any daily updates for a couple of days. I'm sure you would like to see that. Those daily communication updates will start again tomorrow. It's going to be in a little bit different format, but a number of things that you all have been asking for, such as number of wells tested, number of tanks installed, daily updated maps showing the change in zone boundary and so forth will be provided. The city website is your main source of information at this point. So we have a specific page on the city website. If you haven't went yet, there's a big headline at the top that you can have a link. We'll be sharing out in a number of ways, but all of the resources that we have available will be posted there. And you can always look and see updates, and it's updated continually throughout the day. The last thing I really wanted to mention before we, I think, really just open it up for questions is I know that the road work this week impacted some of your garbage service. We have coordinated with Clearlake Waste Solutions, and if your garbage service was missed, it will happen on Friday. That's all the notes I have. So unless we missed anything, we are gonna open it up, let you guys do live questions, not doing the written stuff. So Lauren here is gonna walk around. If you have anything that you want us to address, please let her know.
Stand up. Hi, I have like two questions on one, and I think this was what Ellen said. You're gonna test for 2 or 3 weeks. So what if the well keeps testing contaminated between those 2 and 3 weeks? We still just do without water, running water, and just wait it out?
So that was with those additional tanks. We have some tanks that aren't allocated anywhere at this time. So once we start seeing that data and seeing those hot spots, if they're continued, those are places that we will determine we'll need a tank, and we'll go there with the tank. I completely understand.
I saw a hand over here. Was that still down this lane? Sorry.
Will you still be sanitizing tanks and wells?
Yes, there will still be some sanitizing happen. A lot of this, one thing that's difficult for us in our trying to do this with as much information as possible. There's been a lot of information and a lot of effort out there. It hasn't been coordinated kind of in a central way, and so we're pulling all that in. But those sort of persistently high test result properties, we will be looking for a solution so you can safely be in your home with water, likely from a tank, and then we will continue to sanitize wells and see if they recover and continue testing from there.
Try to go by who's next, but I don't know if I'm keeping track.
There's been an airplane going around 2 days in a row. What's that all about?
Yeah, Incident Commander Polich and I went out there and drove the site today, and we took one of our Zoom meetings out there. And while we were on that meeting, I did see that airplane flying around. It looks to be as a private airplane. It has no association to the incident management team or this incident. And that's all the information that I could find.
Take it.
Okay, I wrote this earlier today. I'm not thrilled about being released from our area so soon. I'm in Zone C2. We have a daughter who had her leg amputated and is fighting bone cancer. I also have a wife who has compromised immune system. I don't know the effects this incident will have on our aquifer in the near future, and I don't want to take that chance with my family. So everyone can sleep well, knowing that the right thing was done. Please provide a water tank on our property of fresh water so we can bring our daughter back home. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm also in Zone C. There's a bunch of people that are even sitting next to me. They're not even on the maps, sir. Both of Highway 53 should be on both sides according to the last maps we got, and it's not. When you sit there and tell us you're gonna give us 2 good tests and we haven't had a good rain yet, that stuff's gonna come our way. How deep will your soil sample, sir? And secondly, we should have a UV protection for anybody that does activate their well as a complimentary of the $750,000 y'all voted in a few days ago. I'm not happy with this. Now I'm sacrificed with my eye, and I'm carrying 5-gallon buckets of water to feed my animals and wash a toilet. Come on, guys, we can do better than this.
Oh,
Sure. So the zones were created so we have a ability to direct resources immediately. We do know that there are some wells that are testing positive that are outside of those colored zones. And I kind of want to back up to the map. The colors on the map, they don't mean anything. Okay, they're not like evacuation maps that we're all used to seeing with wildfires and things of that. The colors are just there to more easily separate the zone boundaries. With the additional water operators that are coming in and the additional teams that we're getting, we are able to allocate some of those teams as, for the lack of a better term, a roving team. Teams that are able to go outside of those initial zone boundaries and test. We have a process that is just about in place to get onto that list for that reason right there.
Hi, I'm in zone B1. I am on ground zero. I was there the very first day. It's been 18 days, by the way, not 17. This is day 18. And we have not had water for 18 days. I have 2 disabled children. I am immunocompromised myself. We're having to go back and forth from our home to make sure we're home, because if we're not home, the assessment team and whoever else is out there will not get to us. I've been making phone calls and emails all day, including to Alan and many other people. I still do not have a date or any information of when my children will have water again. And it's saying that it's forthcoming and we're assessing, and I've been hot since day one. I'm still hot. Our third test on the 21st was the hottest it's been. It says further than the test can handle. So I understand A1's the priority, but I watched 6 people on my street get a well before my children, and there were single people without families. Not saying they don't deserve one, but I'm saying that you saying it's based on data, it's not correct in my case, and saying it's based on need is not correct in my case. So I would like to know when people like me and people like Sean over here can get their children safely home, because that's all we care about right now.
Well, I say it again, we're very familiar with your situation and your property. So again, I can't make any excuses or anything for what happened up until a day and a half ago, okay? What we decided to do as a team was priority 1 based on location, zone A1. That's accomplished as of tomorrow. So our next wave of effort is hot zones, including, I'm familiar with your test results, and some of these other ones, but I mean, I understand the sensitivity around immunocompromised stuff. We spent a lot of time trying to analyze, discuss with public health if there are other tiers to this that could be done. Like sometimes water companies issue a boil water notice. What we ultimately found is there's really only one threshold here, which is non-detect. That's when it's safe to use your water. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on. And I apologize that it's taking a few more days than you would like, since we've taken command here, but this is going to be the next wave of focus to get that accomplished as soon as possible.
Just wanted to mention about the tanks. There are our tanks that we're dealing with, but there's also another program through social services. And those are, we're working in conjunction, but those are separate from what we're doing. So I know those have been offered to some folks in different areas. We're going to have to obviously use our tanks for the folks that are testing hot that we can identify, but if you have an option for those tanks, I would say take that tank if you have that option. But if you're not, then we'll be working with you. I just want to make, there are 2 different, if you see some tanks that are going in some of these other zones, because those are not the tanks that we're allocating. Those are tanks that are being allocated through the social services department. Just make that clear.
My name is Jamie Stevens, and we're over on Old Highway 53. Our well tested positive, and we're not on the map. Okay, sorry. I'm like, okay. And so we're not even in a zone, and environmental services said that we were going to be getting a well. So this is 2 weeks ago that we're now waiting to hear back about a tank, because we were told they were just being ordered. So us not even being in a zone, but having a test positive well, what does that look like for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally, like everyone was saying, the first push was based off of geolocation. It was location based. Now that the location based services have been completed or is on track to be completed tomorrow, now we are able to start using a data set. So those decisions of where those tanks are going to be allocated is going to be derived by the data that we collect and the test results. So then it's going to be triaged from the highest down to the lowest priority based off of the test results. Just because you have one positive test doesn't necessarily mean that you are in need of a tank. It's going to require multiple tests that are constantly testing positive for both of the substances. So there are other avenues that we can take other than just installing a tank. That's a temporary solution. And we've identified that. A tank is not a permanent solution to anyone or to any household whatsoever. It's just a temporary solution to get potable water back into the home. So there are other sanitation devices. There are other sanitation means that we can take if you are constantly having a positive test result. And I understand that. And those decisions are going to be based off of the data that is collected in the test results.
The gentleman here, or lady, excuse me. Yes, that's where I'm going. Thank you very much. I'm gonna hold on to it if you don't mind. Yeah, hold the mic.
Okay. How do you prioritize who gets the next tank?
Again, the prioritization of who is going to be allocated the next tank is going to be based on the number of positive tests that are constantly coming back. And there's no other means of sanitation or any other ways of reducing those numbers. So as of right now, like today, the majority of the entire affected area has been tested. By the end of tomorrow, we are on track to making sure that every single zone out there has been tested. This is going to continue to happen daily. So as that data comes in, again, it takes around 24 hours at the lab to get the information back. But then it does take a little bit extra time to analyze that data and to actually kind of mold it into a usable data set. Once we have a large enough data set to make an educated decision of where those resources are best allocated to, that's when we're going to be able to do that.
Hi, I'm located in zone A1. I had a daycare that I had to close temporarily, which I appreciate the Rotary Club and I appreciate special districts for getting me a toilet and sink to be able to reopen because that's our only income. But the issue is we had sewage like running throughout our house for days and days and days underneath our house. And Robin Bohr stated at the the Board of Supervisors meeting that there's still holes in the pipes and that there's tree branches, all this stuff. It's never gonna get fixed because we're gonna get this temporarily fixed and then it's gonna happen again. And then these tanks are rentals. So you guys are gonna take it away. It's gonna happen again. I mean, she says there's no fixing this. There's no funding for fixing it. Yeah, there's no funding for fixing this. I said, you know, we bought this property. It's more expensive. We bought this property for our business and I made a claim for my homeowner's insurance. I made a claim on my daycare insurance. They're going to be canceled because I made a claim on both. I lost children on my business. This is what me and my husband do. I'm still going to school. I go to school all the time this is what we do, what we love to do. And what about our property taxes, the value of our home? What if we don't want to stay here because I can't have the kids outside here? I cannot let my daycare kids outside. I don't want my children outside. I don't even know what to do. Like, I appreciate the help, but it's not gonna fix it ever. And I'm never gonna feel comfortable. I'm never gonna feel safe for my kids that I take care of since infancy. Like,
Well, I can't address what was said at the Board of Supervisors. We have no information that indicates that there's continual leakage in that section of pipe. I expect that there are other issues elsewhere. But obviously, we're gonna have to address those incidents. I mean, this is outside this incident command team's focus. I know the city council is very concerned about the maintenance operation of the overall system. And so, that's kind of another whole process that is ongoing. I'm not sure what to say other than that related to property values and all that. I mean, we are working on possible long-term plans and outside funding sources to provide the opportunity to connect to public water and potentially to the sewer system itself. I mean, I think all of the issue here is there's a lot of older wells, a lot of older septic systems. We don't have like consistent testing data, but there's an expectation that some of these problems existed long before this incident. Mr. Weatherby, talked about some of the challenges around that at length last time. So our goal here and the focus of this team is to address any ongoing issues related to this sewer spill on your property and make sure it's safe for you and your family and the folks.
I'll come back to you, sir.
First of all, thank you for what you guys are doing and for the first group of what you guys attempted to do. Secondly, what she's going through is horrible, horrible. All of us are feeling for you and your family. We're all in the same boat. My question still remains. Are we going to have UV protection for the people that are going to stay and remain on the contaminated land within those zones as they build and continue to build? We need protection. You didn't do proper ground assessments, because if you did, we'd have that data today.
I mean, I guess I'm not sure how to address, we didn't do there weren't proper assessments or whatever. I mean, we can look at, that was the point of the damage assessments. We did identify a small number of properties yesterday that look like there need to be some additional things addressed. I think there were 3, maybe 4 properties that had some soil removed and replaced. It looks like to us like there may be a few more that needs to happen, but you're going to need, if you have some information and concerns about that, you're going to have to communicate it to the team and we're going to have to look at it. What date?
So if you're talking about like soil contamination, Dan, so I've learned a lot about in a short amount of time about sewers and septics and that kind of stuff. Mr. Weatherby back there, who's obviously more educated than I am about this, that he advised that because I asked the same question, that there is no good test, and correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, for testing the soil. There's always going to be E. coli present in soil just because of, well, there's a lot of animals out there. There's a lot of things out there. There's septic systems out there. The soil's never going to be able to be tested. There's no starting point. Nobody ever tested it, so we don't know what it looked like before this happened. So that's really not something that's doable to know.
But if we have some indication that there's concerns about still the remnants of raw sewage or whatever on the surface, which as he mentioned before, like sunlight is a miracle worker for this type of thing. We will come back and address that if it looks like it's an issue. But we're also told that there's a very low likelihood that there's any active of those organic total coliform or E. coli on the surface as a result of this incident.
We'll go here for a question.
Go ahead, go to Brian, go to Brian Cunningham, go ahead.
People ahead.
Through the front yard, on the side of the house, under the house, A1, right? Right next to the cases, next to this guy. And once you deem the water is safe or the ground is safe, would you let your children or your grandchildren come and play Hot Wheels in my front yard? Or can I make them Kool-Aid from my tap water, would you allow,
Do you want to address or just have a question?
So I know that you brought up the case of UV light. So what you're talking about is a long-term, the future of recovery. And that is something that we have discussed at length over many, many meetings. What are our options for that long-term recovery? And I can honestly say right now, we're not at that point. We're not at the point to identify and make a decision about any type of the long-term 6, 8, 12 months from now. Our goal right now, this team, is to get everyone back home and somewhat in a normal lifestyle. I know that normal is kind of a bad word to use because it's not going to go back to what you're used to as normal. But we're wanting everyone to get home and to get some sort of usable water at this point. Once that bridge is crossed, then we can start looking at that long-term recovery and what type of options that we have for answering those questions. I hope that answers your question about the UV lights.
No, and that's what we're trying to get to. I mean, truly, that's what we're trying to get to, is the point where you can do that. I mean, that is our goal. I want to circle back to the soil real quick, because I've asked those same questions of Craig back there, as far as is it safe on the soil? I can only imagine seeing sewage running through my yard and what that would be like. I can only imagine what that's like, and to have seen it and imagine going out there again, or my kids playing out there. I get that. But from Mr. Weatherby and his educating me, everything E. coli that should be out there that was a part of this should be dead because of the sun. It's the UV lights, just like UV treatment, kills all that. So that's what he's told me. We can let him speak on it a little more. He could explain it better than I can. I don't know, Craig, if you want to explain that real quick, because soil is kind of the question.
I know you guys are tired of hearing my voice. So yeah, E. coli can survive in the sunlight for 80 to 90 minutes. We have a lot of sunlight, but that's just the surface. There's a lot of variables that you have to look into. Soil conditions, the type of soil. Loamy soil will promote the life of it. Sandy soil will kill it faster. We have a sandy clay loam out there, so we have a mix of both. The higher the depth, the further down it is, the longer it'll survive. The more access it has to biological materials such as manure, will make it last longer. E. coli likes manure. That's what it feeds on. Every single human here has E. coli in them right now. And every time you go to the bathroom into your septic system, you are recharging your septic system with E. coli. That is the natural order of things. So yes, there's a lot of variables. It's impossible to say that, 3 feet down, it's going to be alive for 150 days. But on the surface where people are interacting, you're generally not interacting with soil 3 feet down. You're interacting with the top inch. That top inch, with the temperatures that we had, and I'm so glad we had a really good week, right? Good sunshine, good temperatures. I mean, it was almost like spring. Those actually really helped us significantly. And the likelihood of a viable strain of E. coli surviving on the surface is almost nil. It's never zero. Scientifically, you never reach zero, but it's as close to zero as you can get on the surface. In terms of testing for E. coli, testing for total coliforms, there is no meaningful test that we can do to say that it is more or less than it was on January 10th than what it was on January 15th. We don't have background data to really go off of to have comparable data. Nobody was taking soil samples out there. So those are things that are very difficult to make an assessment on. But I will say on the surface, it is likely dead.
I'll hold on to it.
So I've had 200 on my well, but my well's turned off. So if the aquifer is contaminated and then you turn my well on, is my well going to be contaminated? I'm still confused about that. right or wrong about that?
So how's your well been sanitized? Okay. Yeah, I'd like to, if Councilmember Kramer will let Mr. Weatherby free, maybe we can, do you mind coming back up here, Craig? So the question was, she's had her well sanitized. So you've had 2 negative tests after? Yeah. Can you just explain the process real quick?
Outstanding question. So thank you for that. Process. When we are sanitizing a well, we are basically injecting a lot of chlorine into that well. And the idea is we're going to circulate the water inside that well until we get to a certain parts per million for chlorine. And then we're going to draw that up into your house, let it sit for 24, 48 hours, come back out and purge. That purge is actually what you're talking about on that second sample. We're actually pulling all of the water out of the well, right? All of that is out. So that the next sample that we take is actually a direct reflection of the aquifer water that is now being pulled in. Naturally, wells are perforated at the bottom. That's how the water intrudes into the well. Those perforations actually allow the water to move through your well. That's partly why this is such a challenge, because things that are happening on a well upstream, up aquifer, is moving and then goes into your well, and right, you're all connected by way of that water. That's why water is considered such a community resource. And conditions on neighboring properties that allow for contamination, you may have the best well and you may do all the work yourself. You can still end up with contamination if somebody else's well is not being maintained properly, right? So the perforations in those wells allow that water to move freely, and water that's being pulled up after the purge is a reflection of that water that has moved into your well. Does that answer your question a little bit? So that's what we're looking for, is those 2 back-to-back 0-0s after, was your well sanitized, just so I know? Okay, we're looking for it post-sanitation. Yeah, but they're purging it. When they come back out and they take that second sample, they're taking several, could be anywhere between 50 to 200 gallons of water out. And then they're testing that sample. Then that's what we're looking at, is that purged water. After we get that out of the way, we're getting a true reflection of the water coming out of the aquifer itself. That's what we're trying to achieve.
I'll go here and then I'll come to the back.
I'm not sure if this is for Alan, but earlier you were speaking about the 2 negative tests. And then there might be like an advisory or something where you could use your water. Is that like they're saying that you're 100% safe and say 3 weeks later, you're not going to be contaminated?
No, I don't think that there's ever that guarantee. And, I think we know that some of these probably tested high. If we would have tested everything on the 10th, like someone mentioned, they weren't all going to be 0-0. So, I mean, that's always the public health advice, that you have, you test your well, but there's no regulation that the county has or the city has that says you have to do something around that. It's your well. No, I mean, public health's recommendation is that you have 2 negative tests 24 hours apart. It is then safe to use your well.
Come out on the 3rd and it's not good. Well, then we've just all drank this crappy water.
That's the recommendation. That's what we're planning on doing. Although, I did say that even those, we are going to be continuing to test and to try to identify. I mean, I don't want to give you advice if it was my well. Even if I got the 2 clean tests, I probably wouldn't be drinking it for a little while. But
I'm gonna go to the back.
I know we're testing, or you're testing for the raw sewage and the things like that, but what about the things that special districts has to check or test other than that? You know, like, Volta organic carbons. And, you know, they have to test for that every year. Are you guys gonna come out and test our wells after this? I mean, if they dump into fresh water or anything like that, those have to be tested. Those other chemicals have to be tested for.
Yeah, we're probably gonna need Craig. I would say this, the other kind of constituents, we are going to be testing the raw sewage at the plant, and having our hydrologist analyze that and determine if there's any concerns to the aquifer with what's in there. But at this point, we don't have a real firm answer, but I think Craig can shed some more light on it.
I should get hazard pay. Okay, that is exactly why we're looking to bring on the consultant who is an aquifer specialist. Somebody who, she's a PhD, she's a master's of engineering, right? This is somebody whose whole career is focused on looking at groundwater. So that's why we're looking for that. I'm pretty confident in my knowledge of environmental phenomenon, and I will wax poetic all day long about septic systems in ways that most people will never, ever talk about septic systems. And I can talk about wells, but when it comes to what's actually happening in an aquifer, unfortunately, it's below me. I can't see it. It's hard to measure. But that is exactly why we bring in consultants with specialty knowledge so that they can guide us in making sure that we're looking at the full picture, not just my limited scope. So that the answer is we're asking for help on that, and we're looking for experts on that, not just going off of my high school knowledge of aquifers. Does that make sense? Yeah. So for the incident, we're focused on the biological contaminants. That is the area of greatest concern. That is the primary risk of waste or human waste is in the biological aspects. There are likely other things in, but they're usually at such dilute levels as to not rise to immediately dangerous to life and health. But again, that's why we bring in the experts to help us with that, to make sure that we're answering all the question completely, not just a limited set.
I'll start here and then I'll go to the back again.
I just wanted to caution everyone because we were told in the first and second city hall meeting that these experts would be going out testing and flushing our wells. And I've had 3 tests done and 2 of them were where my softener and filtration system was still hooked up. So these tests are not being done correctly. That's my main concern. My other concern is if they're not being done correctly, how can we have appropriate data to be able to make public and safety decisions for our families? So I feel like whoever is testing it needs to be re-upped or there needs to be a specific procedure and protocol, because as of right now, what's happened on my property, that has not been the case. And I've had 3 tests, all of them hot, and I'm still waiting, so.
So that was something that was identified, that was happening or had happened. So we've talked to Craig and that's all been straightened out. We have our operators are out there. They've been clear direction. They know how to take the tests. There shouldn't be any more issues with that.
I'll hold on to it.
I have a question for my own knowledge. This didn't happen to me, but my good friend here, Brian, the sewage spill went underneath his house. So I'm curious, I went over there for dinner last night. Yeah, that's where I was last night. And when I got home, I didn't exactly smell like roses. So I know the smell is horrendous at his house. And I know they can't go under his house and remove the dirt. So what kind of mitigation is going to happen in a case like that?
Well, let's make sure we get your address so we know which one we're talking about here, and we will assess the situation.
Come back to you in just a moment, ma'am.
So I was wondering if either when the tanks are installed, if you do the installed or you deem it well clean, it can start be using it. A lot of people didn't get notified till after this. So how do you guys check that their pipes aren't contaminating their house? Do you come in and check their water out of their tap? Because they just keep checking it at our well. You know, by the time, what if like somebody else had it and you say you're good to use it, but their pipes in their house are contaminated because maybe they didn't find out till later and they sucked up that nasty water in there, or when they came over and flushed it and it went through our pressure tank and brought it in there. So, I mean, is that something you guys are gonna do or try to flush the houses when you do either deem the wells good or you install a tank?
Great.
I really wanted to not be at the table today, so thank you for that. Yeah, the process, right now we're focused on the wells. You're absolutely right. We're really focused on understanding the water coming out of the aquifer in the first place. For the people who have had their wells sanitized, that also included drawing up some of that chlorinated water up into their pipes to the faucets inside the house. That includes enough water to fill up the water tank for the water heaters. It includes taking it to the bathroom, all the way to the furthest faucet from the well, so that we're getting everything between the well all the way to the house. Then it's held at that state for 24, 48 hours. And part of the purge is bringing in fresh water afterwards. In the case of people who are getting the tanks, that fresh water will come into the tank and they'll use that to purge those lines and get you back to a non-detect on chlorine. Your lines at that point are sanitized. Yeah, that is something that can happen, especially if we're talking. If you were still connected to your well, that's possible. Yeah, absolutely. But that's part of the process of putting the tanks in. We're testing at the well. We're looking for what's at the aquifer. That's our focus right now. That doesn't mean that we can't or you can't sanitize your stuff, or you can have a contractor, or we can get ours to do it. Either way, the actual lines themselves are a very easy process compared to everything else. And I will say everybody's well is almost, I hate to say it, but it's kind of a snowflake. Every one of your wells is different. In its construction, in its materials, in its condition. Every one of them is unique in some special way. Some people have 14-inch cased ag wells that they're using for their home. If you compare the volume of the water available in that ag well compared to what's in a 4-inch domestic use well, there's a lot of water we have to pull out to be able to say that we are now pulling aquifer water into that 14-inch casing. That's a huge volume of water. So we have to look at every single property as we come on site and look at the condition of that well, calculate out if most people have a 6-inch casing, which is normal, but we have to make those calculations. And that's what we hired the contractors to do that. And they are doing that work under their license that they are trained to do for that purpose.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Cindy Crandall and I live on Robin Lane. I've lived there for 27 years. And why am I getting so emotional? Well, the whole thing is, I know there's policies and procedures, and I know that it takes time to gather and time and you have, I know there's a process to it, and I get it, and we understand it. And you guys are probably like, well, why are you guys so, come on, this takes time. We have to do this. We have to do this. Well, it's easy. I'm just gonna use guys as an example. I'm just generalizing. It's easy for you guys to sit there and say and do, but in the last 2 weeks, I've only showered twice, for God's sake. I'm in the healthcare for crying out loud. We're not able to use our water at all. We can't just wash our hands. We can't just cook dinner. We can't just feed our animals. And you guys get to go home and do all that. We have not been able to do that. So I tell you what, I wish I would have done a hell of a lot more camping. I would have been a lot better at this. So my question is, and I do want to say publicly, I do absolutely appreciate what the city has been doing and what you guys are doing. And I do want to thank Action Sanitary for having potable water and having showers out there and doing my flipping laundry, for God's sake. I cried my eyes out. I mean, that was just absolutely phenomenal that, they're out there doing that. So my question is, so now we have tanks. I have a tank. I bought a tank and had it put in and had a contractor put it in because we were told we were going to have tanks and then we were told we were not. And I wasn't going to live without that. I can't have my family not come visit me or not be there and not have water. I want to know how long, because this was not ours and you guys know this obviously, but I want to know how long special districts is going to fill our tanks for us, because we should not have to pay for water. Before we paid for taking care of our own, our own wells and our own septics and everything, that's on us. But so this is their doing. I want to know how long they're going to pay. They're going to fill our tank.
Well, first of all, I want to say, you don't need to apologize for being frustrated or emotional. We get that, we understand that, and, we do feel for you. I mean, as of Monday, our entire life, everyone up here is consumed with trying to resolve this issue for all of you as fast as possible. And I think what I would say as far as water in the tanks, those impacted by this incident, that water is going to be refilled until it's safe to use your well. Okay, well, we're gonna have to talk about that.
Okay, next question.
And my well was fine.
Okay, hi, I'm in B1. I've been out there over 40 years. Yes, my well was negative, but my concern is this is the second major sewer break. Now, I know you have to address what's happening today, which I understand, but something's got to be done about the future, because if 20 years is another break, is it going to break in 5 years, 10 years? When they put that trunk line down, that road, a lot of people in that area were very worried about what happens with the break because it was such a big pipe being put in the ground. And then who is going to oversee Lake County Special Districts that they are doing the proper maintenance on it? Who's going to check up on them? Because this is our second major break. And I'm 700 feet from, well, I was only about 200 feet from the other one. And I was on my property. We all own property to the middle of the road. It's an easement. I understand all that kind of stuff. But who's going to check up on them?
I'll try to address your question and not get into too much trouble here, but, well, right now, who oversees Lake County Special Districts is the Lake County Board of Supervisors. And then the regulatory agency really that oversees them is, the State Water Resources Control Board. Okay, they give them their permit, they do inspections. You can find out all that information. It's public. There has been issues in the system for a significant period of time. It's an old system. There's a lot of concerns. I mentioned before that this is something the city council is very concerned about and has wanted to have a role in the governance of special districts. So it's not something this team's going to address here, but I can guarantee you, especially after this, it's not something the city is going to forget about.
No worries. I have a couple questions. So environmental services told us to only use our water that because we were waiting on our test result and then it came back positive to flush our toilets and water the lawn. Is that your same advice? The second question is the well flushes with chlorine to sanitize it. And then how do we address our septic afterwards? Because now it's full of bleach or chlorine, which is something that is a big no-no for septics. And then finally, environmental health put us on a list. And on that list, since you guys are taking over command, are you getting that information that they have been collecting? Because or should we be contacting the city hall with an update about our positive test? Because again, my concern is that 2 weeks ago I tested positive and I'm not in a zone and I knew that this was going to be the issue. So how do I make sure to advocate for us? Because we're also in the same boat.
All right.
Yeah, you're right. You should probably not put bleach down into your septic system. Everybody knows that. Everybody who, well, correction. Everybody in the Bay Area does not know that. Everybody who has ever grown up on a septic system knows that you don't flush a lot of paper down with it and you don't put chemicals down into your septic tank. However, what we're talking about, once we flush your pipes and your lines and all that, there's going to be some residual that goes down into your tank. And yes, it will kill some of the bacteria in your tank. That is absolutely true. However, your system will recover. Every time you go to the bathroom, you are recharging your system and giving it everything it needs to do its job. So you do not need to worry too much about the long-term impact of the bleach going down into your, if you pour a whole bottle of bleach in there, well, that's on you. All right. And good luck with the smell, right? But for what we're talking about residual, we're talking 10 parts per million, 15 parts per million. We're not talking 2,000 parts per million, right? That is going to do some damage, very minimal. We're talking about killing bacteria, not damage to the tank. Sorry, bad choose of words there. So yes, so don't do that. I don't see it as a long-term problem at all.
On the second part, if it's our folks that are out there doing, taking the tests, we are getting that data. Even if you're not in a zone, we are getting it. We want them taking some of those tests outside so we can kind of get a survey for that. And we'll get those reports and then we'll make some decisions on how we're going to address that, just so you know. We are getting, yes, it's all coming through environmental health to us.
And this is something I wanted to address earlier and I forgot, but there's been a lot of requests like for the actual test results that environmental health gets. And you can't all see this, but this is the report that comes in from each testing team, which each one of those is a test, right? It doesn't have your address on it, has a site ID, has the date, has who collected it, total coliform, E. coli result, and so forth. So if you're expecting like some detailed report that talks about the test results, that doesn't exist. We will be providing the test results in a letter once you have the 2 positive results, as I mentioned, but there isn't like some magic report out there. If you have questions about that, that's something that can be addressed by public health, but I just wanted to take the opportunity to try to clarify that for everyone. Hopefully that's helpful.
I just want to revisit something real quick. There was 3 million gallons of raw sewage that came into uncapped wells, and they said approximately 8,200 gallons potentially into the lake. When I referred to doing ground samples, I'm a lineman. I know some people, most people here know me in the county. I've been in this county for 20 years. When they did Mare Island, ladies and gentlemen, they had to dig up 65 feet of ground. And those folks were told when they bought those homes for 800, 900,000, they couldn't grow any food on there anymore. Is that going to be the case for this? And is there an expectation date for you all to give us what we think is normalcy again? Say 30 days, 2 weeks, and then assistance is cut off. Is there an expectation date that the previous, maybe before you guys have had, or is that too soon to come up with that?
As far as normal, going back to having 0, is that normal? I know that it's hard to go back to normal after going through this, so I don't know that we have an exact date. It's all going to be on our test data and the results from that to be able to, as soon as we get those two, 0 tests and come to your house and say, here's your test results and your well is safe. I don't know when that's going to be. We're going to test every day as much as we can to try and get there, and then we'll let you know your well is safe. If that answers your question. Don't know that I can give you a date. We'll just keep testing it as much as we can and looking at the results, and from there, make our decisions.
That's also kind of a good news. We don't have an out date. We're not sitting here saying, okay, next Monday, it's time for us to go back to our day jobs. That's not what we're doing here. Currently, we all work for the city of Clearlake, for Clearlake citizens. We're here until we are able to mitigate the incident and return everyone back to some sort of sense of normalcy. So do I have a date that when we can accomplish that? I don't, but I also don't have a date of when we're leaving. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, I had a concern, as well. I didn't speak on it, but, me and my husband aren't plumbers or electricians or anything like that. But, when they turned our well off, they didn't inform us to turn off our water heaters. We have 2 water heaters. Thank God my husband Googled it a day and a half later. From what we Googled, it could fill up with air and it explode or not work at all, which would be the best option. So I just want to let everybody else know, please turn off your water heaters because it can explode. And I have a family and I watch children as well, and that would be horrible. That would be horrible. Okay, yeah. Additional questions, Sam? I apologize. Thank you.
I'm in zone B1, even though the rupture was right at the bottom of my property. And my well has not been sanitized yet. So I'm still waiting and I'd like to know when that's going to be.
Were you home today? Did they come and collect water samples today at your house? Do you know? So hopefully they were able to collect some samples today because they were supposed to do all there. If they didn't, they'll be coming back tomorrow. Hopefully you'll be home tomorrow. And when we get those results, if it's testing detected, then we'll try to make arrangements and have the well sanitized. Is that a tank that you purchased, or what did that? I don't know how, and if we have
I can get you some guidance on how you can do that yourself, but we can also work with the contractor to on your specific as well and work to sanitize the tank before filling it with new water. So that's you're in the impact area, so we can do that type of stuff. Come see me afterwards so I can get your address and I can make sure that I get a sampler out to your house. We'll work with you on your schedule. If you need to be there, we'll find out when you're available and we'll come during that time. We'll do our best to try and make sure we get you in there. I do want to do a quick thing about sanitizing. If you have a 0-0 well, that is a well that's already coming up as a non-detect, there is no point to sanitizing, right? There's no bacteria there to kill. So if you start off at 0-0, we may not come out and do a sanitize on the well. We will do a second sample. If you come back 0-0 again, right, or a non-detect, then at that point, we will look to actually start putting you back on use of your well and removing you from this incident so you can go back to your life. But that's what we're trying to achieve.
I'm gonna go to the back. I'll handle it.
I was a plumber for 45 years. I've dealt with commercial, residential, you name it, including power or force lines. If you're concerned about your septic system, the easiest way to treat it is to put a quart of buttermilk down your kitchen drain for once a week for 6 weeks. What happens is the buttermilk has a bacteria in it that the bacteria of the septic tank feeds off of, makes them healthy. The more bugs you have in there that are naturally in a tank, the more effective your septic tank will work. I had a septic tank up here in a house for 15 years, never had to have it pumped. When I sold the place, I had it pumped and the pump guy says, "You don't have any problems. Why are you pumping it?" I says, "Because the buyer wanted it pumped."
Question? Ma'am?
So, in regards to getting tested, I'm in what are we, B2? B2, my house was just tested today for the very first time. Very first time. There was only one notification when somebody came. Can you guys come? Can they come after business hours? I work at the high school. I'm there from 7 a.m. to 3:45. My husband is 4 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock. Can you guys come at later times so that we can be there and make sure that you guys test from the same location each time? And being notified when you guys come to try and sample, please and thank you.
All I can say is we'll try, because we send the teams out there and say, test every house. And so they're out there trying to test every house. They will collect samples if you're not there, if they can. Well, today was the first day since this team has been working that we sent people out to do those tests with the way we want to do it. So hopefully you'll see them every day if they can accomplish that as far as we can see ahead.
I do want to say we need to get our last collection by 5:30 because we have to get those samples to the lab. And they have to have time, it has to be 24-hour hold time for them to be able to analyze the plates, which means that they're not actually completing the work until 7 o'clock in the evening the next day. So we have to get things to the lab in a timely manner. So we can't always collect at like 7 o'clock at night. However, we will do everything we can to work with you on your schedule if you want to be there. If you don't need to be there and you're okay with them collecting samples, we'll do that too. Yeah. Come do it.
How do we know, like today I got home from work and there was a letter on my door. Does that mean you guys came by? It said to call environmental health, which I did, and she had no clue what was going on.
Okay.
So there are now 7 teams not two teams. And trying to organize which teams are going to be actually going to your house and calling you directly, that gets a little bit more challenging. Doesn't mean we can't do it. It just means that we need to get better at it. With 7 teams, it is harder to manage across all of them.
So we want to notify you that your well will be tested every day. And if there's some special accommodations, we want to get well tests. I mean, there's been huge gaps in this area that have never been tested like you were talking about. And so we need to get more tests. So if there's some special accommodations that need to be given to us in order to accommodate that, I would request that you call us and we do our best to accommodate that. But, you know, we are doing an enormous amount of testing every day now so that we can get decisions made as quickly as possible. It's going to be very difficult for us to give you an exact time when those folks are going to be there and that type of thing. So if you need special accommodations, please let us know, but expect that someone will be there every day. What was the question? You can call the City Hall main line. So Melissa Swanson, our Administrative Service Director, is the dedicated public information officer for this request or for this incident. So that's your best point of contact. If you don't get a response, you can call or email me.
Additional questions? Sure.
Okay, I don't think you've introduced everybody at the front table. I don't know who they are, and are they people that we need to know?
Could have waited on this question. Leah Sautelay, OES Manager with the Lake County Sheriff's Office.
We were just really excited to start delivering the news that we had. We're trying to work at an exponentially faster pace with a different organization. My name is Ben Moore. I'm with the Sheriff's Office and I'm one of your deputy incident commanders.
I think you guys know me, Alan Flores, City Manager.
Hi, I'm Tristan Hayes. I'm the Public Works Construction Project Manager, acting as the Planning Section Chief for Incident Command.
I am Adeline Leba, the Public Works Director for the City of Clearlake, acting as the Operations Section Chief.
And we have a couple other section chiefs. We have fiscal and admin, Dakota Hockett from the County Auditor's Office. She's on Zoom right now. And then Casey Moreno, who is logistics section chief, and she's a deputy county administrative officer for the county.
My name is Lauren Berlin. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Lake County Sheriff's Office, and I'm working in the Public Information section to lead this information going out to the community.
I'm Melissa Swanson, Administrative Services Director, City Clerk for the city, and I'm also working as the Public Information Officer. I'm your point of contact when you call the city.
Here, and I'll come back to you. I'm gonna go this way just to get a little easier, sir. Behind you, sir. I'm gonna hold on to it, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for showing up tonight. My name is Jeffrey Dryden, and I have 3 questions. The first would be 2.5 million gallons of raw sewage dumped out onto the ground and soaked into the aquifer where it joined 5 million gallons of water. The sewage did not go away. It's still down there in the aquifer. So my first question would be, after I get my 2 negative tests, how long until the aquifer infects my well again? Second, 2.5 million gallons of sewage is partially sewage. The rest of it is Sanaflush and other chemicals such as byproducts of methamphetamine manufacture. They get flushed down the toilet. Is anybody, this guy touched on it back here, is anybody looking for what type of off-the-wall teratogenic, mutagenic, carcinogenic chemicals are now in the water there that they will not go away? Those are inorganic compounds. And third, has anybody done a root cause analysis? And if so, how long till this is going to fail again?
Okay, I'll start with the first one if I can remember all of them. So the numbers that you shared with the amount that was spilled, not all of that was correct. Based on what was reported by special districts, there's 2.9 million gallons that was lost from the pipe. a significant amount of that was collected through pumper trucks. I mean, I think they're finalizing the final numbers on that, so we'll see that out and share that out at some point. And again, you know, I think we addressed the other constituents. We don't really have a good idea right now. We're working with our hydrologists on that, but the initial reaction is that it's likely diluted to a level of non-significance with the volume of the aquifer, which is significantly more than 5 million gallons. And then the last one, root cause, again, you know, I don't know what else to say about issues with the system itself. There's a number of concerns. We expect an increased level of inspection and maintenance to happen moving forward on the system.
Thank you, folks.
I'm a dummy, I'm a hardhead. I want to know what you do if you get a tank and you hook it to the house. Do you turn off the pump, the water pump, the well? And then do you empty the hot water tank also? And then and are you notified then when your well is good or what?
So that's part of the services that the contractor is being, that when they put their bid in, they agreed to do some of these services, which includes the sanitizing of your lines and so forth. They may draw chlorinated water up into your system, including into your hot water heaters and stuff like that, to help sanitize and keep that. Once they flush that system and go back to 0 parts per million, and fill your tank with potable water behind it, at that point, you're clear to use your water like you would any other day. The only difference to you on a tank versus a well is that you do need to be mindful of the, 2.5 hour shower, right? You will use up water and you only have a certain amount. We sized the tanks at 2,500 gallons. Everybody's like, that's a weird number. No, we sized it based on 60 gallons a day per person of usage of water. 60 gallons is, you're gonna drink about a gallon of water, but the other 59 gallons is for you to flush your toilet, it's for you to take your bath, it's for you to do your laundry. And the 2,500 gallon basically gives you 7 days of water before you have to be filled up. And they will be continuously running in cycle to keep filling these tanks up. So we built in additional water usage for you as part of the tank. That's the only difference, is that you'll have to think about how much water you're using. Once you go back onto your well, once everything is figured out and you are back on your well, you would use it in the same manner you would have before the incident. Yes, the idea is the tank will be independent of the well. It will not be connected to the well so that it cannot be recontaminated if the well water is still contaminated. And then once it is, if we do another sanitation on a well and it comes back to cleans after that, you can go back onto your well, and then we'll figure out what to do with the tank after that.
We go to the back.
Hi, this question's actually was one that was sent to me to be asked, so this is not my question. I know what I would do, but the question is, if you don't have an answer that your wells are clean or not clean, does that mean that home gardens can't be watered with the water? Fruit trees, are they edible? Fruit edible? So that's a question that was posed to me. Oh, I'm asking it. That wasn't for me, Alan.
Thank you.
That is an outstanding question, Russ. I'm glad you thought that up. And I am going to give you the quickest answer you're ever going to get by saying it in the longest way possible, which is I don't know. I don't know. Sadly, when it comes to botanical, I can't tell you what the uptake is on bacteria. I do not believe that bacteria makes it through the phylum of the trees and plants and stuff like that. But I would actually refer that to, say, UC Extension out in Lakeport they have botanists that actually can answer that question better than me, and I would trust their brain more than mine.
Again, to the back.
what role does special districts now have in this cleanup recovery?
At this point, Robin is helping us with manage where the tanks are going and keeping track of where tanks are going so we can log all those and keep track of where the tanks and where tanks need to go. So she's organizing, working with those contractors to get those installed.
Okay, I have a couple questions. So originally, Craig, at the last meeting and the meeting before, you had said that we were probably gonna have to be testing wells and doing testing for 1 to 2 years. So what I want to know is, one, is that still how we're looking at it? Because I want to know how long are we gonna test after wells are clean? Are you gonna do it monthly? Are we gonna do it yearly? I mean, what are we gonna do? That's question number one.
If we can keep it down in the main audience while the questions are being asked. Thank you very much.
I think this probably goes to Alan. So what about emergency funding for the public water? Is it possible to get water from other water companies? And then I do have a question about the roads. So Alan, the last one, actually you really kind of pissed me off. The way he did it, the way you said it. And I know you didn't mean to come off like that, but so originally you had said that this is special districts. Robin Road isn't part of the city. So now that you guys are fixing it and now that you guys are part of it, so I don't know where the funding is coming from. We probably would like to know that too. But so since you guys are fixing our road, so is that becoming city stuff now or are we still county stuff?
Well, I'm sorry that I upset you. What I tried to explain last time was that Robin and Pamela are both private streets. Okay, so Clearlake has a somewhat unique situation where there's, most of this was developed before the city existed as an unincorporated area of the county. And when a piece of property is subdivided, there's a decision made on whether the roads are going to be public or private. Most of these were offered to the Board of Supervisors many, many years ago for public use, and the Board of Supervisors rejected that offer, which means they're private streets. And normally the only time this happens is if there's a homeowners association or something that will then maintain those streets, right? This would never happen today, but we have, out of our 110 miles of streets in the city, I think somewhere over 30 miles of them are private, which is quite unusual. So anyway, the public funds that we get, gas tax and other things, we're not allowed to use those on private streets. It's considered like a gift of funds to a private landowner, okay? The city council adopted a policy a number of years ago that if the fire chief, the police chief, or the postmaster requested some maintenance to those streets because of their disrepair, that the city was allowed to do a minimum amount of maintenance to those streets. That's the policy that we've been working under. So what I was saying last time is, because they're private streets, we don't come in and do that maintenance. This was a special districts incident. And so they, presumably are responsible for that. So the special districts credit, so the work that was done was not done by the city that happened. Special districts is working with the county public works department to do the road maintenance work that happened. Okay. And to your other question, somewhat related here, yes, there are ongoing conversations about the possibility of extending probably Highlands water service to at least a portion of this area. Okay, so we've had a number of conversations, met with Mr. Davis, who's a general manager. He's working on what sections are actually feasible probably to connect. And we're working with our state elected representatives and our congressman to see what funding might be able to be identified to possibly bring in not only water service, perhaps sewer service, which is going to be probably an expensive and complicated endeavor in this area, even though it's odd that you have all the sewage in Clearlake and Lower Lake goes right through the middle of this area. And we would also like, this may be a big ask, but we're going to ask for everything we can to improve those streets and bring the streets into the public road system so that we would maintain them going forward. So we don't have any answers on that yet now. It's probably going to be in best case 2 years before there's any actual action on that. But we will do everything we can to see if that's an option. And then the first one, I forget, it's been so long ago.
Man, so much has changed since then. So yes, there is a long-term plan as well. Again, this isn't a 2 weeks, we walk away, right? This is a problem that's now been identified. And once you know the problem exists, you don't just walk away from the problem and hope it never happens again, right? That would be a disservice to you. It would be a disservice to everybody that's sitting in this room. And nobody wants to deal with this again. I promise you, I never want to deal with a sewage spill ever again. And I know you guys feel the same way. So there is a plan in place and part of that is bringing on that consultant, right? So that we can start getting the information necessary and build the case so that we can actually go to our congressman, get the money we need with a better plan. And we will continue testing. It may not be every day. We're going to slow down at some point. We're not going to test everybody's well every day. There's no scientific validity to doing that. It's just wasting a lot of money. For now, it's important, but in the long term, we will select a series of monitoring wells, and we will select those once a week, once a month, whatever the consultant feels they can get the data they need to start making decisions long term. So it is not a walk away and just stop testing.
And again, we appreciate the side comments being left to a minimum while we try to get these questions answered directly. Thank you.
I just want to clarify something you said. The question was who's putting in the tanks or facilitating where the tanks go. And I want people to know that Special Districts is working with the EOC on getting those tanks placed as we are out there today, physically getting them placed. As far as where they're going to be placed, that will be with the EOC and going on the testing data. So I just wanted to clarify that we are out there physically helping the contractors put them in and getting them set up and getting them filled with water. But as far as who gets the tanks, that's going to be on testing data. So just wanted to clarify that.
Additional questions?
Look alive, Craig. This is for you. You've been mentioning a hydrogeologist. So what modeling and hydrogeologic assessment is actually being used right now to track the aquifer movement, and how is that going to be updated and how frequently? Two-parter, will the raw laboratory data be available, not summaries, to homeowners upon request? Because I'm not going to just get a piece of paper that says you're good and I'm going to go, okay, and give a glass of water to my child. So.
I thought you liked me. So yeah, okay, I'm gonna go with the second one because that's the easier answer. Okay, yes, I will gladly give you the test results. And again, they're not gonna have the addresses on them. In fact, it's just gonna be that. But I will highlight which is yours because I can identify your property based on the lab sample number. Every single sample that we collect gets a sample number, and that's what we use to track through the system. I will happily give you all of those. In fact, I'll give you every single page we've had since Monday, right? Because if you want to see that data, it's not secret. There is no conspiracy to hide it, right? It's not particularly useful if you don't have the key, right? And yes, I have the key, and no, I will not share the key with you, right? Because while I love you, Cassandra, you're awesome. I love your questions, your inquisitiveness. I am not going to share his results with you. That's his information, right? And I'm going to have the same courtesy for your information as well. But I'm happy to share all of the results we can. Now, back to your question, was it? First one, modeling. All right, this is the part where you put me on the spot, and thank you very much for that. We're operating off of an awful lot of assumptions because I am not a hydrogeologist. I am not an aquifer specialist. I have some knowledge. I do have some education and background that allows me to make some inferences. But no, I can't tell you exactly what is happening on that aquifer underneath our feet right now as we speak. That's why we are bringing in the specialists to help us give those information. I will say, to toot my own horn, because I like doing that, a lot of assumptions that I have made, I've been in phone conversations with the State Water Board, their geologists. I've been in conversations with the hydrologists that we're working on, and they agree with some of the assumptions that I've made in the emergency setup. This is what we need to go with right now. And that's partly why I expanded the zone to include that area between Bowers and Rumsey, because I didn't know exactly what the aquifer was going to do. And those folks were also on well water. We expanded it to include those folks because we didn't know. And so we went with very conservative estimates when we were doing that, just because we have so little information. Bringing in those specialists will help us bring in more information, dial it in more specifically. No more hands, no more hands.
Okay.
Hi, I just want to say, I do appreciate all you guys doing this and coming in and doing it. I think and I'm sure you understand, I hope, but if I'm looking at 2, 3, 4 more weeks, that's hard. I mean, I could sit here right now and cry. It's very hard, and it's not feasible for us to get up and go stay somewhere. There's a lot of factors included. So looking at another 3, 4 weeks, it's going to be difficult. It's just not going to be easy.
I can tell you, we don't want to be here for 3 or 4 more weeks either. Okay, that we don't want to, excuse me, we don't want to see people be out of their homes or without water for 3 or 4 more weeks either. Absolutely not. One of the reasons why an incident management team was decided to come in and reorganize the structure of this incident was to change the way resources are ordered, allocated, and used. One of the successes that we had today was increasing our water operators by more than 400%. That made us able to test the majority of the impacted area, not just zone A1, but every other zone that we can think of. So we are trying to work at an exponential pace to get everyone back to some sort of, and we keep saying it here, some sort of sense of normalcy. So yes, we are trying as hard as we can to return that to everyone here. Well, as of right now, we're still trying to test every well on a daily basis. So as those days open and close, we are building that data set. So in the very beginning, with just few tests here and there, or a few tests everywhere, we didn't have a very large data set. Now with this flood of testing and the flood of data that's going to come back in, now we're able to analyze that data, and then we can move into a data-driven response to individual wells. Yes, that is our goal, absolutely.
Based on what they were able to do today. We didn't think they'd be able to do that much, but they were able to do almost the whole affected all the zones with the exception of like A1. Not all of them, but that is the goal.
To the back. I'm gonna go to him first, sir, since you've been able to speak.
Okay. I'm curious because of the fact that the policy is to shut off all the wells as you test them and clean them. Wouldn't that affect the flow and the speed of spread of the sewage spill in the aquifer if we change the way all the wells are working?
Thank you.
Yes. But in a good way, yes. Understand that in any aquifer, you already have water replenishment anyway. It's coming down off the hills, washing through the area. It's a slow moving process. It's going through a sponge, not a river, right? But the less water we're drawing up, that is true. We are actually not moving water as quickly as a result of that. But that water is being pressured and pushed on by water coming off the hills and pushing it out to Clearlake where it would naturally go even if humans weren't here, right? So the answer is yes, we are slowing the pool, but the water is being pressured and refreshed by uphill water and moved anyway. That is actually helping us because you're bringing fresh water in to dilute potentially contaminated water. And it's also pushing, just like everything else, it's pushing it out under the area where people don't rely on that water for their drinking water, right? In areas that are already served by like Highlands or some other municipal. And eventually it will join the lake as well, where nobody wants to say this, at least no environmental person who in the last 40 years wants to say, you know, dilution is the solution to pollution. But that is actually a real thing here. As the water moves out into Clearlake, it will dilute with the rest of the lake and will cease to be a biological concern to people.
If I could just add real quick, one of the kind of cool things that the hydrologist is working on is building a model that will calculate actually the number of days it should take the sewage that got into the aquifer to move, traveling days, they call it, I guess, out of the aquifer. So that'll be information hopefully we have soon.
I have another twofer. Out of the 60 tanks that were approved, how many of those have been ordered and have a home waiting for them? I'm really interested in that information. And I'm also interested, you know, are you guys confident that you're giving us enough information for us to make safe health decisions? Because I don't feel that way and most of my neighbors don't feel that way. So do you feel like you're giving us enough information to make those decisions?
So the 60 tanks, I'm not sure where that number came from. There was never a number put to, we're going to buy 60 tanks. So I'm not sure where that came from. And maybe that was out there. The board authorized 500,000 for, no, let me finish. 500,000 for tanks, 250 for water delivery and testing. That's what was authorized. So we currently have the 13 tanks that are going in A1, and then we have 14 that are in our depot, let's say, to use when we identify places that need them. After we look at the data, then we can decide if we need more tanks. That's kind of where we're at right now. I don't know.
Not other than, I mean, we don't know. We'll be deciding on a quick cadence on whether we need more. It doesn't look like from the testing data that we're looking at now that we're likely to need anywhere near 60, but we'll see.
And on I think so. I mean, we're working with public health. We're Dr. Bob with Craig. We're providing as much information as we have to make you feel safe. So I don't have their education. I never in 30 years thought I'd be dealing with this, but here I am. So that's my knowledge.
Yes, now that we've identified we're going to have some testing done every day, do you think we'll have the same technicians testing our water so that we can be proactive and have a set schedule for some of those folks? Because there's some folks here that do work long hours. Are we going to have the same people testing? Can we reach out to somebody to be proactive about if we have to leave like I do, I have to go to the hospital and I have to go out of town for the rest of the surgery stuff that I got going on. So can we be proactive and set something up like that? That's all.
Thank you.
That would be great if we could do that, but the ultimate answer is no. A lot of these additional water operators are coming from other agencies and other entities, basically kind of like mutual aid. We've all experienced fires. We've said that earlier, right? How many times during a campfire have you seen firefighters from Los Angeles? from Florida. At one point, we had Australian firefighters here. So we're utilizing all the resources that we can get our hands on. And some of those resources, like I said, are coming from out of the area. So the direct answer to your question is no. We don't know who exactly is going to work Monday morning, Tuesday afternoon, until we get closer to those days. And if we have a need for those resources, we put out that request and we take whoever is able to respond to that request.
So one of my questions is, so this is due to obviously poor maintenance. So why does Lake County, whoever it is, provide everybody at this point with a tank and let us live our normal lives while you guys figure all this out? It feels like we're suffering for poor maintenance. And it's just not our fault, but we're the ones at home trying to survive through this. And it's not easy. So I don't know why they don't just make it easy for all of us while all this testing is being done.
Shorter answer is a tank is not a permanent solution. It is a temporary solution. It is a Band-Aid. And that's the best Band-Aid that we can give to those who are in need of those Band-Aids. We have all had kids that have scraped their leg and it's a little red and they want a Band-Aid, and sometimes those Band-Aids work. But if we only have so many Band-Aids to give out, that's when we have to change it to that data-driven information to how we have to triage those. So that's why if we could, originally, if we could come in and say, okay, everyone in this area gets a tank, and then we can then take a step back, shift gears, and then kind of go and attack well by well by well. But that's not possible right now.
And what we're really doing is doing the testing, because if you get the 0-0 test, there's no need for a tank. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Once you get the 0-0 test, we are going to deem that your well is safe for you to use. Yes, yes. Yes, that's what Craig's office is going to bring in a letter that with your test results to show the 0-0s and with the information that your well is safe to use and with some other information of how to keep up with monitoring your own well. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember anywhere in that Board of Supervisors meeting that they said 500 was delegated to tanks and 250 was delegated to water. It was originally 500,000 asked for and 250 was added to it. Nothing about how it was getting delegated. It was voted on with no stipulations.
I wasn't at the meeting. I was advised, so I can't speak that I watched it 100%, but the 500 was the original. There was a request for 250 more, and that was in the for the testing and for water supply. I'd have to go back and watch the meeting. It's online, but that's what I've been advised. Just up to Bruno. I would say that's what I've been advised by our county admin. I'd have to watch the
Thanks, Brett. So it was originally $500,000. It was brought up asking what would the cost be for the water, because it will require water being put in those tanks. We can't just give you a tank and walk away and call it good. So that's when we added the funding. It was something like 100, 150. Eventually we said 750. It was not specifically stipulated, but it needs to be divided so that there is money available for water as well as other things. 750, if there's more needed, we're trying to figure out all the costs and all of the potential finances that are gonna take place for this emergency. so that it goes back to the Board of Supervisors for another request. So it's not like it's $750 and it has to be done with that amount of money. They will figure out the best way to divide the money at this moment in time because they are in charge of this emergency. But the $750 is in their hands. And then if there's more needed, they would come back to the Board of Supervisors.
I just want to bring up what is a personal thing for myself. On the 10th, I was tested at 680. And I just heard this information today. And then on the 22nd, after I was sanitized, my count's 2,500. Is it a possibility, and why that would have gone up like that?
Yeah, it is a possibility. And we've actually had a couple of folks that have had that exact same phenomenon. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong. I don't know your well condition. I don't know where coliforms come from without bringing E. coli. Frogs have coliform counts on them that are not E. coli. They're cold-blooded. They do not have E. coli. So frogs go anywhere where water is available to them. I'm not saying that's the case in this one. I'm just saying that's a possibility. It's something that we look at, and we'll probably go back to a resanitation again and see if we get a similar result. And again, every time something like that happens, right now it's considered an outlier, but what if it's not an outlier? What if that's something we need to be looking at more specifically? That's what data-driven means. We start getting data that shows a different model. We have to change how we're thinking and look at it and go, what is causing that? But first things first, we need to repeat that by doing maybe another sanitation of your well. We'll look at the well itself, the case head, look to see if there's something around your well that could possibly be adding to or contributing to, and then isolate that out and try it again. So yes, it can happen. It is a weird result. I agree. It does not fall in line with my understanding of how water works. But again, we all have to, in my case, I have to learn on the fly and under fire. But I'm learning a lot about water that I didn't know last week, I'll tell you that. So yes, it is a weird result. It doesn't mean that it's the end of the line though.
So if I got my math correct, 13 tanks were placed and there are 14 in a depot, for lack of better words. So that's 27 tanks. What's happening with the remainder $500,000 that's supposed to be for these people that do not have it and will not have it for possibly another month or so? Why is that money being stagnant right now? Why aren't things being?
I wouldn't say that nothing's happening with that money. We're doing, all these tests cost money. And we're testing every home almost in the zone, the whole zone, every day. Those are like $300-400 a test per house per day. So we need to use the data to find out where the tanks can go or need to go. And we have 14 ready to go once we identify that with this data. So the money is there for us to use, and we're using the money. Hydrologist isn't free. That's what money's for. That's where we're paying for all of this. None of these people are doing stuff for free. All the water deliveries, that all costs. So the money's being used for this. Thank you. We'll be putting out our information updates, hopefully daily, with some updates on tank placements, and as Alan said before, and maybe next week we'll have another meeting.